All right, 20J's impressive show of force coming back. Really, thank you for making the effort to be here so we could mark your graduation correctly and in style. And it's a real pleasure for me and an honor to be able to help you mark this important moment in person. Wow, it's been a long time coming, huh? So I will address you, again, not just this hat, but with all these different hats I get to wear, Deputy Dean, Professor of Strategy, and a little bit on innovation. So first of all, let's do the Deputy Dean thing. So really, on behalf of Dean Ilyan Mihov, all of my faculty colleagues, but especially those that had the pleasure to teach you and interact with you, and all of the dedicated staff that bring the MBA program to life, please accept our deep congratulations and our pride at having you as graduates of the school. It's really good to be able to do that in person and not just on Zoom. As Deputy Dean, one of the things I love is I get to travel around and connect with our alumni all over the world, whether, well, it's at reunions here or at alumni forums, alumni events, online. And it's one of those things in COVID, you sort of tell yourself everything's fine, I'm fine, I can keep working like this. And then in the last year, to get back out and go to alumni dinners and just, a little bit as, faculty and deans, we're on the side, but you get to see communities coming back together and you feel that energy when INSEAD alumni come together. It's just been hugely energizing for me and many of us. And of course, why do we spend a lot of time staying connected with you? Well, of course, we live in an era where we talk a lot about stakeholders, and there's no doubt that now, as graduates, as alumni, you are the key stakeholder of the school, right? So many of you, I guess, will have come to INSEAD because of the reputation, the brand, what you thought it would do for your career, and hopefully you're feeling that wind behind you. But now, as you move from sort of students to alumni, it's my role to tell you it's a two-way street, right? So you are basically the product of the school. Our reputation depends on you. Your successes, the contributions you make to your organizations, to your communities, to society, reflects back on our whole community, on the school. And so very much, you'll have heard Ilyan and Urs talk about the fact that INSEAD is a common project, but really it is. And it is something, it's a community, it's a school, it's in some ways a cause that we build together. So now, take off my Deputy Dean hat, and I'll put on my strategy hat. And as key stakeholders, I want to talk to you about the strategy of the school, the past, the present, but then mostly where we want to go together in the future. And I guess it's also good for those of you who've come along to see your graduates on this day. You can find out a little bit more about this crazy school that they're graduating from. Very unique. Okay, so INSEAD is, despite the fact that we're graduating in this wonderful ancient chateau, INSEAD strategically is late to the party, right? When does business education really get started? Like the big global brands, Wharton, Tuck, Harvard, Stanford, when are they formed, right? Way back, Tuck, I think the first, Dartmouth, 1900, Harvard Business School, 1908, and INSEAD, over 50 years later, right? In this chateau, first class joins in 1959. So one thing that's interesting about INSEAD is it is a textbook case of effective late entry, right? Many of you may be thinking about starting a company at some point, coming and disrupting a market. INSEAD, very much a great example of effective late entry. What do? Three things. You don't go head-to-head with the incumbent, so you target different customers. So obviously, INSEAD's roots are in Europe, so they really go for originally European. If you want to think about the original persona, you think about typical continental European engineers in Europe in the 50s, 60s. So everyone studied engineering because it was a thing to do. And then you get out a few years and you discover, I don't really want to do engineering. I'm in management. How can I quickly learn about what this management is about? So that was the key thing we targeted. And then the next thing you do if you're late is you have to innovate. You got to bring something new to the market. In INSEAD's case, it was first of all the one-year program, which has really set us up incredibly for success. Again, you're a continental European engineer, you can throw 80% of the coursework at them in 1 year. And of course, the second thing, again, drawing on that sort of moment, almost magical moment now in Europe, where people were coming together across international boundaries and really making the first original international business school. The final thing that it's really striking, I think when Ilian and I sort of took over leading the school over a decade ago, we'd go out and we'd meet alumni from the 60s and 70s. And they were very much like the other alumni, very committed, interesting people. But they also had this thing, which was why did they come? And part of it was the mission of the school, especially at that time, around actually building peace and prosperity in Europe. And yeah, I guess for a while, we thought that job was done, but yeah, maybe not completely. Anyway, so that's where we started. And then I think the key thing to know about, the key thing that drove the evolution of your school is that niche that we had. Obviously, the most effective thing was being this international business school, because for the last 50 years, it's been an era of increasing globalization. So we were very much at the right place with the following problem, right? Some of you will have the experience of starting in a niche, and then it becomes the mainstream. And at first, that feels really good until you realize all the big competitors are coming after you. And that's exactly what happened to INSEAD. The Whartons, the Harvards, the Stanfords, they all started talking about how international they thought they were. So the key thing in the way your school developed was, how do we raise the bar as the original and hopefully still leading international business school? So we did two things. One is we thought a lot about who we're going to admit. Originally, it was just like, oh, come from different countries, that'll make an INSEAD class. By the time you come along, it's very much, we want each individual to have already demonstrated that they can do business across cultures. So we built a class where each individual, in some ways, embodies that globalization. I think a lot of the magic in the community is connecting with other people like that and building bonds with them. That was on your side. On the school side, obviously the biggest thing was saying, okay, great roots in Europe, but let's go global and really say, let's go to Singapore, let's put almost half our activity there and really become global. So that was great. Okay, so that's the past. What the heck are we facing today, all right? So now you as professionals, the organizations you're at, INSEAD, in our position as the original and still leading business school, crazy times out there. It really is an age of disruption in so many ways. Again, even, I don't know if you're counting, I think this is wave 7 of COVID in France. But of course, we can look back. It's nothing like waves 1 and 2 that we lived together. People are getting much more used to this, thankfully. And we can really start to make sense of what is the lasting impact of COVID? What is it doing to us? And again, lots of the crazy stuff you live that you'll tell your grandkids about will bounce back, right? Angst about, is nightlife going to collapse in London or New York? That's not happening. Will people not travel? You just look. I mean, I imagine it was a pain to get here for many of you. The transport infrastructure is creaking, like so much of the infrastructure these days. However, what's clear is there were a number of major trends already in 2018, 2019 that have been accelerated by the pandemic, right? Pushing on an open door. And I think these are the kind of things that we've got to grapple with as a business community, as leaders, and also, again, as a school. So the first one, clearly digital data, whether how you shop, learn, work, collaborate, that's been accelerated. It was already there. I think it's very fitting, the graduation speaker that you'll hear shortly, just one of those alumni who's really set the path in that whole domain before, during, and now after COVID. The second thing, though, is clearly there were these discussions about ESG and sustainability. All these conversations have new weight, new urgency. Clearly having lived through just experience, I think, the fragility of our systems, ourselves, our communities, there's much more amplification around issues of wellness and inclusion. But also, I think about the debates in 2018, 2019. Can we really change the economy to save the planet? Save the planet. And in fact, when you look at what we do, or you look at still what China is doing today to try and push back on the virus, how is it credible not to be able to step up and make the changes we need for climate change? So those are interesting. Those are in some ways, I think, fun challenges to rise up to. I'll talk about, I think they play to our strengths as a community. But there is a third force out there before COVID, accelerated, storm clouds on the horizon. And that's for sure this growing sense of nationalism, often fueled by identity politics. So again, these are not all the same, but Brexit, Trump, Islamic extremism, they're all sort of part of a broader movement. And I think for us, it's challenging. It comes together for the first time since INSEAD founding. We're not living in an era of increasing globalization, but one of deglobalization. And again, I don't want to go in. Obviously, the Russia versus the West, probably only a warm-up from what may be coming in terms of the China-U.S. conflict for in the years ahead. So, okay, so wow, with all that heavy stuff going on, what do we need to do as INSEAD? So we have to really rise up to this moment. And I think, as Urs said, there's a lot of reason to hope. There's a lot of reason why our community is super relevant, probably more so than ever. So first of all, again, we've got to take some of the criticisms of globalization. Clearly, there have been some huge winners, but too many losers, and we have to take that on board for sure. But at the same time, there's so much that's going to be lost if we just throw in the towel on globalization. And again, not just company profits at P&G, but if you're going to ask major multinationals to reinvent their products, to be more sustainable, to use closed-loop supply chains, use less plastic, they can do amazing things, as you know. If I've got a market of 3 billion people, I can drive amazing innovation. If the world becomes fragmented, small local markets, we will not get the kind of solutions that we need. So that's, I think, more relevant. At the same time, let's be honest, if we want to keep bringing top talent to INSEAD, one of your roles as you get out there, as you meet exciting young people, is to talk about your experience, talk about what it meant to you. And that's the fundamental way in which people come to INSEAD. What are you going to talk about? I mean, again, obviously the globalization, I'd be interested in what you see. Is that resonating as much? We have reasons to think that sometimes it's not playing as well. So fortunately, we have built very deep other strengths that we're also leaning on. Certainly, I think about the work that we've done around Force for Good, hugely important, right? So the ability to reinvent the mission of the school, right? Not just around peace and prosperity anymore, but fundamentally, how do we lead and think about responsible business in this incredible, challenging era that we live in? And then the second one is just my passion, is around innovation. I think you're probably already starting to see it, but my prediction, based on so many classes I've seen, stay connected with your classmates. You are going to be amazed at the kind of businesses they start, the kind of transformation they lead inside of companies. There's something, was not intended, but bringing together people like you who, frankly, don't really fit in any actual culture or society. You tend to think differently. And in an era of disruption, that kind of mindset, the kind of stimulation you hopefully get from the community is going to play very well for you. And again, it's this joint thing. I've no doubt that the energy in these classes, you will rise up to these global challenges. You will innovate like crazy. Thing that keeps me up at night is how do we keep the school keeping up with you? How do we keep innovating in what we do fast enough? And I hope to see you at future reunions where we can typically update you. I just want to highlight one key thing for you, which is your experience. You had the first hybrid experience of INSEAD as 20Js. And again, as Urs says, I think the core MBA program, as much as possible, is going to be in person. But for sure, the alumni value proposition that we're building for you has to be hybrid. So I think in the last few days, you've experienced the power of coming back together in person. And again, reunions and alumni forum will always be part of how we want to connect with you and help you connect with each other. But then, as Urs said, you scatter all over the world. For us as a community, we will be stronger if we also connect digitally, right? We've had tremendous success during the pandemic in terms of webinars, more than any other business school that I know. And so the kind of things we're working on, actually I just got the first version half built on my phone, like a learning app, so that you can keep up with the latest faculty, what they're saying, what they're thinking, read articles, see short videos. But again, not just that. Even when we think about continuous learning for you as alumni, yeah, half of it should be faculty, but increasingly, every one of you is going to be an expert in some area. How is it we're going to build a platform so that as you're at the cutting edge of your field, you can contribute back, take some of the senior alumni, what have they learned? And again, as management practice changes faster and faster, our commitment has to keep you where you are today at the cutting edge of management thinking. So again, my wish for you at the end, at this graduation, is we send you back out into this incredibly complicated world, is for sure, keep learning. Again, you're our product. We want to keep you updated. I wish we could do like a Tesla and just upload new software every year, but we'll have to work harder than that. But that is our commitment to that. And again, it's the amount of learning you get from your peers will be amazing. And so the main thing I just want to leave you with as you reconnect is we are stronger together. You're a fabulous 20J class. You're now part of an incredible global alumni community. Take that energy you have as a class, build your network within INSEAD, bring new people to the platform because it's your school now. And we look forward to building the community together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. I'm super excited to see what the school is developing under your leadership, so thank you very much. It's now my honor to introduce Barbara Martin Coppola, MBA20J, as our distinguished alumni speaker. Barbara is the CEO of Decathlon. It's a leading sports brand, and you have all lived, I hope, somewhere near a Decathlon. Yes? Yeah, okay, great. Decathlon is number 3 in the world, with presence in 70 countries, more than 100,000, it's called teammates, apparently, sharing the same passion for sports and dedicated to making sports accessible for all. Barbara joined Decathlon in March 2022. She's a global citizen with more than 20 years of experience in 9 countries. She has worked in 4 different industries, from semiconductors, consumer electronics, retail, and pure digital players. Before joining Decathlon, she was Chief Digital Officer at IKEA, so the two of them have been talking a lot here. She was responsible for the digital part of the whole group. She held leading positions at Google, YouTube, Samsung, Texas Instruments. She brings a very strong focus on customers, and she has a very, very successful track record of growing and transforming businesses. Barbara has a Master of Science in Telecommunications Engineering from Universidad Politécnica de Madrid. I'm sorry, my Spanish. Master of Science in Mobile Communications at UNST, that's here in Paris. And an MBA from INSEAD. She's also graduated. Yes. She's also graduated from an advanced management program, so she lives the lifelong learning, but she went to the other side of the Atlantic to this Harvard. But still, okay. Barbara is married, has 2 kids. Her passion are discovering different cultures, tasting good coffee, like I know many of you do too, music, and obviously sports. Please help me welcome Barbara to the podium.